You know what? I just realized I think I did not enable the maximum, the video on the sharing. I don't think should I stop sharing real quick and check or pause the sharing, I guess?
Yeah. Go ahead and stop sharing.
Stop and then make sure. Okay. I just realized I did not click those things. Share sound and okay. And oops, and then I want to go here. Okay. What? Okay. Oh geez, what's it doing now? Okay. I think we're good now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Now
okay, because I got cut off for a minute.
I'm so sorry. I think that was my fault.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, I got scared for a minute, but I'm ready. I'm back.
Yeah. I think we're ready for your intro, Mariana.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started in a minute. We're going to be offering live interpretation in Spanish during this meeting. If you wish to hear the Spanish interpretation, please click the interpretation button at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. You'll see a globe icon right after these instructions. If you're joining us via the Zoom smartphone app, select your language by clicking More or the 3 dots in the bottom right corner of your screen. Select Language Interpretation, then choose Spanish, and then click Done. If you wish to hear only the interpreters and not the original audio, be sure to click Mute Original Audio. Muy buenas tardes, vamos a comenzar en un momento. Estamos ofreciendo interpretación en vivo al español durante esta reunión. Si desea escuchar la interpretación en español, haga clic en el botón de interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de la pantalla Zoom. Verá un icono en forma de globo terráqueo que se encenderá después de las instrucciones. Si nos está acompañando a través de la aplicación de Zoom para smartphone, seleccione su idioma haciendo donde dice más, 3 puntos en el de la pantalla. Seleccione Language Interpretation, interpretación del idioma, y elige Spanish y haga clic en donde dice Done o listo. Si desea escuchar solo al intérprete y no a los oradores originales, asegúrese de hacer donde dice Mute Original Audio o silenciar el audio original. Thank you. Back to you, Corey.
Thank you. First of all, I want to apologize if you see some little blocks on your screen. I've minimized the pictures for me, the video images for me of people's faces to try to minimize that block and move it out of the way of the slides. I'm not sure why sometimes that pops up, but I think it's popped up for some of you. So I'll just try to keep those out of the way. If it gets in the way of something, just please put it in the chat and I'll try to move the toolbar and the little video bar out of the way. So welcome to the Parent University tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the middle years program. I'm Corey Julius. I'm the IB coordinator for both the PYP and the middle years program here at our schools. With me tonight is Jose Diaz, our assistant principal in the middle years program, and Christopher Ray, Mr. Ray, who is our 8th grade teacher lead and also a math 8th grade teacher who has a special appeal. Jose, did you want to say anything before we let Mr. Ray make his appeal?
No, thank you just for joining us tonight, and hopefully it's informative. And Mr. Ray.
Okay, so Mr. Ray, I'm going to go ahead and move to the right slide, yeah?
Thank you. So I just wanted, I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about this program that we're doing this year called No Place for Hate. It's something that we're applying to be. It's a program that's focused on it's in terms of inclusion and trying to get kids to kind of really fight against racism, bullying, bias, and try to make a more inclusive environment at Einstein. We're doing it both at the middle school and the elementary school. So I just want to briefly talk about what it is, show you a video, give you some examples of some of the activities that we've done and that we are planning. And then my appeal is how you, some of the parents who are attending tonight, how you could help us. So if we could go to the next slide. And Corey, one thing I would say is if you could make sure when you click the video, if you could do the closed caption to make sure that.
Yes.
And so please, this is a short video just kind of to introduce what No Place for Hate is all about.
No Place for Hate makes my campus a more friendly and enjoyable place.
It gives them an opportunity to learn about stereotypes, prejudice, and how to change the negative perception that they feel about differences.
Some kids used to call me fat and ugly, and they would push me around a lot. Ever since I got a result, my life's been much better.
I think the best part is the fact that it's student-led, and ADL does a really good job of kind of scaffolding the development of the program. So they don't just come and assist us with getting the program started, but they kind of walk us through the implementation phase so that schools can actually be successful and grasp the program and it actually work and produce results.
At the beginning of the year, we make sure that the kids are coming up with the ground rules and the norms for the classroom so that they feel included and they feel part of it.
Building them up is really important for me, and making them aware of how impactful their actions and their words can be.
So I just really want to help make our school a better place.
No Place for Hate just fits right in with our philosophy, inclusion and appreciating our diversity.
And when we brought it in, it kind of was our tool to educate not only the students, but the staff and the families.
Just seeing those students take what they've learned from the program and actually using it day to day in the hallways, in the cafeterias, in their classrooms.
I think just being there for them and supporting them is just what an ally is.
That's the best part as a teacher.
It's created a climate of respect and compassion that we can be very, very proud of here.
They definitely know how to resolve conflicts a little bit better.
No Place for Hate. It's just so comfortable. I love it.
Being able to accept everyone for their true identity, whether it's their nationality, their race, religion, no matter what it is, and just being able to respect them and appreciate them.
I think No Place for Hate should be a core subject in every school. It's just as important as ELA, math, science.
We teach children how to read, but we don't teach empathy. We don't teach understanding, and the world has changed. We need to teach that.
If we don't know how to take care of our peers, then how are we going to build the next generation?
Okay, let me see if I can get out of this.
So then I've watched that video I think 10 times, and I still love it every single time because I think it's really critical. I love what the teacher said about it's just as important as teaching children about English and math and science. So we can skip the next slide, Corey.
I put all the rest of your slides at the bottom of the presentation since you told me that the video.
Well, there's that one. I need what like the activities that we're doing. That's not what
okay, I'm gonna let's see. Can I jump to the bottom of my slide?
No.
How do I do that?
I can just describe it, I guess.
Okay.
All right, so I just wanted to give an overview, like what we're doing. We have a good group of kids that are, it's supposed to be student-led, this No Place for Hate. And I and one of the other teachers, Mr. Mo, were helping to guide the students in the activities that they're planning. So we've done a pledge. We've had the entire school community sign a pledge that encourages everyone to be sort of think about not being or trying to reduce bias. So if you can go to the one with the candy canes. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, thank you, Corey.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We've done this pledge to have all the kids sign it electronically. As soon as the screen comes up, we did this right before the holiday break. We did candy canes of kindness, where kids are not anonymously nominated kids who have been helpful and considerate, trying to encourage that. And then what we're working on right now is a word slam competition, like a spoken poetry competition to combat microaggression. So we're doing all these great things. So my appeal to you, and not to take more time away from Corey on the next slide, or on the next slide.
This one?
The last one, yeah. So we do need families to be involved in our committee. Like, as this is a program that's done by the Anti-Defamation League. And in order for us to qualify as a No Place for Hate school, we have the student committee with teachers on it, but we also need a couple, like a few family members. We did have one parent involved for a while, but their schedule got too busy and they had to pull out. So my appeal to you, or to at least some of you, is to maybe participate in our committee and support us. And I want to say that, like I wrote there, it's not, I want to say, a big commitment. We have meetings almost these days, it's almost every Monday afternoon, but certainly we'd be happy if our parent, our family member, our guardian came once a month. And then in addition to that, just providing guidance as we're doing these activities, giving the committee input and ideas and support on what we're planning to do. So if you, and I think it's absolutely critical that we do this year. I think that we do have students on our campus that want to make a difference and they want to see more positive interactions and focus on inclusion and accepting people for who they are. It would just be great if we could get a few volunteers to help us out. So please, you see my phone number at the bottom of that slide and my email address. Please contact me if you're interested in helping us out.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Now I'm going to try to get my, there we go, slideshow back on track. Okay, here we go. All right, so in the chat, if you could please just kind of quickly jot down, and Mr. Diaz will kind of keep track of what's going on in the chat for me, I think. I wanted to know, first of all, before we get started, and this is part of an inquiry of a cycle, is figuring out what do you already know about the IB middle years program? And you can answer in English, Spanish, it's fine. Or what comes to mind when you think of the IB program? So maybe if you're not sure what you know about it, but something you must, what word association do you have? So if you could just take about 20 seconds to drop something in the chat and kind of see what you guys are thinking about IB already. Don't be shy. Okay, good. I like your honesty, Mark. Great, not sure what it is. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. Okay, do you want to read those out, Mr. Diaz? Or
sure, you got a couple here. Nothing. I apologize, but I'm clueless. Problem solving. Okay, I associate IB with many classes at university. I assume it also teaches about European history more than regular school. It teaches language skills at a level that will be applicable to studying in Germany. Global thinking. I'm not sure what it is. So a good mixture.
Okay, great. All right. So then yes, that's all. Those are all correct answers. All the things that you're thinking about. So the next, let's see if I can get it to, I always have a hard time with this slide thing. Okay, so what do you want to know about IB? That would be the next thing. I'd love for you to put something in the chat about what you're curious about. And obviously, if you're not sure what it is, probably everything you can possibly learn is great, but I'm just curious to think what your questions are coming into tonight. Okay, Jose, could you maybe?
Sure, there's a few, everything in details, general philosophy, final projects for 8th grade. It is the equivalent of abitur. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. And I apologize for my Spanish. Forma de aprendizaje cada niño. Sorry.
Okay.
My print is really small here. Assessments. And that's what we have so far.
Forma de okay, cool. Okay. Assessments. Perfect. Yes. Okay, great. I think we're going to cover most of that. All right. So again, I don't like it when the arrows, I have to make this thing show up. Okay, so some general descriptions for what the middle years program is and what it is at our school. So the actual framework, the middle years framework, is created collaboratively by the teachers at the school. So part of the IB program is the written curriculum. So we don't use textbooks necessarily. We don't follow a preset curriculum. We have a framework that we follow from IB, and we use, of course, we have to embed, because we're a public school, we have to also include California state standards and Common Core and the NGSS, which is the science standards, and any other things that the state requires us to make sure children are learning about. So we have that, and then we also have IB criterion in all of our subject areas that we also have to teach. The IB curriculum is designed through 6 global contexts, and we'll go through those in just a second. So those are organizing lenses that we see content through. In the primary years program, they're called the transdisciplinary units. And if you were in the training last week or the parent university last week, we talked about those a little bit, and I'll show you those as well. Another core principle of the middle years program and of IB is that it's multilingual, and it values home languages from all families and all students. And then there has to be a language component. There does not have to be a dual language component as we have in the primary years program at our school. That's kind of special. Most IB programs just have language acquisition as their language model. So ours is a little bit special and a little more complex than that. The middle years program is often, it's defined as interdisciplinary. Oh, and I forgot the R in interdisciplinary. So I will show you what that means versus in the primary years program for kindergarten through 5th grade, it's described as transdisciplinary. So we'll look at what that means. It's also concept and inquiry based, concept and inquiry based. And so we'll talk a little more about what that means. And it is constructivist in its learning theory. So there are about 6 main types of learning theories out there. And the one that IB is most closely aligned to is constructivist, which means that a learning theory is how people learn. How do you learn, and what motivates you to learn? And constructivists, the constructivist theory is that learning does not happen in a vacuum or on your own necessarily. It is collaborative in nature. It is built together in a community. And so often in IB, collaboration is super important, both between teachers and teachers, and students and teachers, and students and students. And so I have some examples of what that looks like in the slides that I'm going to show you. And then the written curriculum in IB is regularly reflected upon and revised. So teachers are regularly updating and reflecting upon what's working, what's not working, input from students about what they think, how things are going. And so the curriculum is not a fixed curriculum. It tends to evolve over time. But still following the same principles and criteria for subject areas. If you're curious about in detail what a course syllabi looks like, or what exactly students are studying in a course, I suggest you get on Canvas, and hopefully you've linked and you're an observer in Canvas of your student. If you're not sure how to do that, there is directions on our web page, or you can always contact myself or Mr. Diaz, and we can get you hooked up. But the course syllabi and all of the courses that your students enrolled in should explain what they're studying through their semester or their year, if you want to know what the content is. Okay, this is a quick video about the middle years program, and it's international in its nature, but I felt as I was walking around campus taking pictures to show you tonight that this is very similar to what goes on in our school. So I wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of what this looks like. So we're gonna just watch this video, and I apologize. It says there's closed captions. they're not, except for sometimes the students are speaking in another language and they do caption those. And those of you who speak Spanish will understand them anyway. So let me go ahead and start this.
My first impressions of the MYP were, wow, this isn't a traditional setting. This is a creative framework that allows students to engage with one another, engage with the teacher.
The MYP, it allows the teacher to be more of a facilitator, and that I like. I like being able to go around, seeing the kids work together, helping themselves, helping each other.
Really focuses on the person as an individual thinker, an individual learner, and somebody that is creating their own pathway. I love being able to nurture their individual strengths, and that's what the MYP does. I don't want the students to just think that science is science and art is art, and that's something that the MYP really nurtures. It nurtures that cross-collaboration.
So one of the main ideas for MYP is we emphasize the holistic learning. So we're not looking to how long the essay they can produce, but we're actually assessing their understanding and analyzing skills.
The way we learn is different because we understand what we're learning, we don't memorize it.
Porque se focaliza mucho en el proceso. Lo importante es el proceso de creación, el proceso de construcción, el proceso de adquisición de conocimiento. Además, se les hace siempre al final de los proyectos una reflexión.
Our students are exposed to different parts of the world. Our students are then more globally aware and more prepared for the real world.
The internationalism, the capacity to understand others, to put yourself in others' shoes and see different perspectives, something which is so crucial.
And the knowledge that we are hopefully not only giving them the academic skills that they need, but really the life skills to be able to build on, to be able to take with them.
En gros, à l'école, on apprend à travailler en groupe, à organiser, et du coup ça nous aidera pour notre futur. On pourra travailler avec des personnes qu'on n'aime pas forcément, mais ensuite on pourra faire des grandes choses et améliorer le monde.
And then we have the assessments that are used around the world that really put the stamp on the rigorous instruction.
They're going out with a sensitivity as to their role in the world.
And the MYP provided them with some of the most valuable tools.
Okay, so that's kind of a snapshot of what an IB school is. And yeah, for those of you who aren't real familiar with the International Baccalaureate, this is a program that started 50 years ago in high schools around the world, so that diplomats' children, whoever they're studying, would have a common curriculum. And then it has developed over the last 50 years to be a kindergarten through high school continuum, with, again, the same commonality. So whatever school you go to, IB school around the world, they're learning the same things. They have the same expectations. So that's a really interesting thing. And for example, our exchange program to the Canary Islands is with an IB school. And so when our students were traveling to Spain we were able to do that for 2 years before COVID, they were in an IB school in Spain and really got to see the connection, the commonality, that they're all doing the same thing. They could just kind of flow right into the classroom and see what was going on, and it felt the same in some ways. So I wanted to just show this quick graphic about, we talked about interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. And this is just a quick image of what does that actually mean. And when you're thinking about content area or subjects or courses, the primary years program for kindergarten through 5th grade, and even the early years now, they have more of a preschool program, is when you mix subject areas, you're working across disciplines or subject areas. It's like a cake. Different subjects and disciplines are mixed together, and sometimes you're just kind of flowing seamlessly from a history lesson into an art lesson into a math lesson, and you're not really, everything's sort of mixed together. In MYP, it's a lot more like a stew. So you're starting to tease out the disciplines. And so that's why we have courses, we have subject areas, content areas, and we have specific grading criteria for each discipline. However, in the MYP program, we are required to and often do have these crossovers between two disciplines. So you might have the math department working with the physical and health education team to combine to make connections between the curriculum that they're using or the content they're studying and how it works with both disciplines. So the lines are a little bit more blurred. And then in high school, and in college even, you become more multidisciplinary or even disciplinary, where you're becoming much more of an expert in different separate disciplines. But even in high school, there is some overlap and there is some attempt to make connections between how, for example, a historian thinks versus how a scientist thinks. So you'll still see some crossover there as well. Okay, so this is the middle years. This is a graphic that represents the middle years. And so again, in the chat, I was just hoping you could quickly put something down that you wonder about this graphic, like the purpose of how maybe it's constructed, or something you notice about it. And we'll just take about a minute to do that. What is something you wonder about this graphic, or what you notice about it? I just love the way the chat is blowing up. There we go. We've got one brave person. Two, that's great. Okay, good. You guys have some great questions. History and current affairs. Good. I don't know if you're still there, Jose.
I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to just
Sure. Just a couple. What do you mean by global contexts? Is it about history and current affairs mixed together? What is behind design? How much hours are spent on language? How might the IB curriculum and constructivist theory assist our students make up for all that they lost during distant online learning? For example, writing ability in English and German. Does IB units will help to apply to college in US? Do IB units help to apply to university outside of US?
Okay. I know you can help me with some of those questions, Mr. Diaz, coming from the high school. Yes. Okay. So let's see. Did anyone actually have a question about this? So what I guess what I want to do first is just direct you to this visual. In all of there's a visual like this, a circle, a wheel like this for every program in IB, for the PYP, the middle years program, the diploma program, and the career related program, which is a newer program within the IB umbrella. And in every single one of them, the learner profile is in the middle of the program. And it really is meant to be the central core that ties all of the K through 12 continuum together. And so it is talked about in all K through 12th grade, and as is approaches to teaching and approaches to learning. and then international mindedness. And those are some of the big, and action and service. Those are all the different programs have those in common. And so we're going to start at the middle of this bullseye, if you will, and talk a little bit about each of these layers, the rings that go out, and then hopefully answer some of your questions along the way. And then we'll try to make sure we have time for questions at the end, if I don't answer everybody's questions. Okay, let's see. I'm always trying to push the arrow button. Okay, so the learner profile is really the IB mission statement translated into a set of learning outcomes for the 21st century. So the learner profile is 10 basically attributes that we are trying to develop in the IB program in students. So we talk explicitly about these traits. We teach them about them from kindergarten on. And so they are learning to become people who develop these ideas. I'm not going to read them because I think you can see them. And I'm hoping that our translators are able to maybe translate those to people who in Spanish. I don't know if it helps if I read them, but we'll see them again. So I wanted to just show you a couple quick examples of at the beginning of the year. This is a 6th grade class. You'll kind of see a progression here too. One of the activities we did the first 3 weeks of school was to try to orient everyone into the IB program, since it had been a couple of years since we've been on campus. So a lot of teachers focused on talking about how are we principled in the classroom? How are we thinkers? How are we communicators? And so this is a 6th grade, I believe it's a math class, and they, in their group, drew some, had a discussion. And while they were talking about what it meant to be a communicator, they were also doodling a little bit about what that means. And so they have some graphics here to talk about that. In the 8th grade, this was part of a design class. They actually created their own digital posters. We have learner profile posters all over campus. And in fact, they're stenciled on our walls. But they went ahead and made their own digital posters. We have this poster making device. And so here's just a couple examples. So this again is a constructivist, an example of a constructivist way of learning about caring. So instead of a teacher, when I'm talking about constructivist versus say behavioral or other ways of learning, the teacher might ask the students in a group, what do you think caring looks like? What do you think it sounds like? What do you think it feels like? And as a group, they come up with what they think. And as each person is listening to what other people are saying, they are reshaping what their knowledge looks like. So they're connecting with their own perception of what caring is, and then they are hearing from other people what that is. And then there may be a discussion about it. Well, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that, or maybe this gave me a further example of what caring would be. And so then they documented this and put posters up. And so you can see that this is one way. And of course, the teacher's not just ignoring them. They are also giving some input. And, so even, someone may argue that collaborative or constructivist, well, what if they come up with the wrong conclusion? And the teacher really is a guide in the classroom to kind of keep you on the rails. So these are some of the posters they came up with and they designed. And they have these posted too. So we can tell them, and we can create our own teacher posters, or we can have kids do their own thing and create those things and come to that knowledge, and they tend to buy into it a lot more. And then here's another example of the learner profile based on a discipline. So this is for physical health and education, and they picked athletes who are famous and kind of assigned them to what attribute they thought, oh, this person is open-minded, this person represents balanced, etc. And then talked about those definitions are. So kind of instilling some heroes into this. Okay, so after the IB learner profile, and Jose, are there any questions we need to address at this point?
Yeah, there's some questions, not specific to that, but more longer term about college and so on.
Okay.
I can wait till the end.
Okay, great. Okay, so the next part of the ring that's very important to the program are concepts, global context, approaches to learning, and approaches to teaching. Excuse me. So what are those? Approaches to learning, or what we call ATLs, are the lifelong learner skills that we expect students to develop and continue to develop all their lives, really. There are 5 categories. There's thinking, self-management, communication, social, and research. And again, this is IB's way of organizing these and labeling them. There are subcategories. Thinking is critical, creative, and transfer of skills. Self-management, we work a lot of that in both in elementary school and in middle school, being organized. What are the skills that help you stay organized? Affective is behavior and being in touch with your emotions and how to manage those, your feelings. Reflection, and then social collaboration. Self-management is also, that's right. Communication is through interactions and with information. Social collaboration is really just collaboration with people. And then research is research skills with information and media literacy. So we're explicitly teaching those. When I say explicit, I mean that we actively talk about them and how we are using these skills to help us in our daily lives and with our schooling. And then we also make sure that we're also providing examples and ways for kids to practice these skills in school. So a lot of the things we're doing. So for example, if they're constructing a poster together about the learner profile, they are practicing their collaboration skills. They may be practicing some research skills, some communication, and organization, like kind of hits on all kinds of things, creative thinking, et cetera. So it's on multiple layers, multiple levels are we tackling approaches to learning. Approaches to teaching are sort of the ways that we as teachers are focused on how we present information and how we teach. So for IB, that's inquiry-based. So there's a lot of questioning. So for example, at the beginning of this presentation, I was asking you what you want. What did you know? What do you think you know? What do you want to know? And if we were in class and we were discussing something, we might circle back and say, well, what have you learned? You focus on a conceptual understanding. That is where rigor actually lies. It's not in more homework or a longer set of math problems. Rigor is actually making connections between things. And so we make conceptual connections between disciplines and between experiences and content. It's developed in local and global contexts. So there will be, how does this affect things here? How does it affect other places? We try to look at the whole picture and get as many different points of views of different things that you can. It's focused on collaboration. So again, between the teachers themselves are collaborating. There's collaboration time built into our schedules, hence the half day on Wednesdays. There's collaboration between teachers and students, and in between students and students. Collaboration is just a huge piece of IB. It is differentiated to meet the needs of all learners. And sometimes that happens at the beginning with, just trying to figure out how, when you present a lesson, how are you going to engage all the different students in the classroom and make sure that they can have the opportunity to be successful in demonstrating their learning. So that's usually giving them a lot of choice about how are you going to show me what you know or what you've learned. And the teaching is informed by assessment. So assessment for us is not a punitive thing. It's really about figuring out what do kids know, and then where do we go from there? So what is it they know and what do they need to know? And that's what we use assessment for. Another couple quick examples. This is another activity that kind of demonstrates a constructivist approach to learning. This was an activity in a classroom. There are different table groups that were doing different things. And this one was activity number 2, who is Sandra Cisneros. And you can see that in this group, they're researching who she is. And so it's hard to see because the print's kind of tiny, but there is a biography, a writing career, et cetera. And so within this, for example, biography, you can see there's like 4 different kids, and they each used a different color text, and they each picked a fact that they thought was important about her life and then wrote it down. etc., and how to just, so everyone's contributing to the knowledge bank basically. And then there might be a discussion about, well, is that really the most important thing about our life that we, that why did you choose that? And so again, there's a lot of discussion going on about the knowledge that they're creating and gathering, instead of just having them individually read, something about Sandra Cisneros, which they did anyway because they were doing some research. So, but then the actual product is collaborative. This is another quick example of approaches to learning. So again, very explicit teaching. What is a growth mindset? And so the kids were kind of talking about, well, what does it mean to have a growth mindset and versus a fixed mindset? And that's part of self-management. Approaches to teaching, again, another just example of inquiry-based and tying to global and local. So they chose local. These are things that they are interested in, and then they were doing different graphs and plots and things. I think this is either a design or a math class, actually. I just thought it was kind of cool that the teacher had put this up. They were trying to, find facts about something that they're interested in, and then try to make I believe, a plot graph and a bar graph. They're just learning about different types of graphing and displaying information and statistics. So again, collaborative. This was just in the 8th grade science. A couple of days ago, they were working in groups to try to figure out the best materials to make a parachute out of. And then after they constructed these in a group, they went off and dropped them off balconies and such and measured velocity, et cetera, in preparation for, they're learning about lab protocol, I think. And so to do that, this was like a practice lab that they were doing. How to do it. I think actually it wasn't lab protocol. It was like trying to develop a hypothesis. They're practicing that kind of, posing a question and then trying out different ways of answering the question and trying to decide what would be the best thing. This is 7th grade science. So again, another collaborative activity. When I walked in the door, they were talking about the relative size of particles and trying to figure out how big and tiny nano sized particles. And they were working in a group as well. They had sets of cards and they were trying to put them in the order of size. And there was a lot of negotiation going on the tables about different sizes and where things should go and just how tiny or how large things are. So there's a lot of discussion engaged in that as well. Jose, how are things? Should we pause? Is there any questions we need to answer now, or?
We can keep going.
Okay, great. Okay, the next ring is community project, personal project, service, and action. So those are another big pieces of the IB program. Actually, I forgot to mention concepts in global context, so we're still kind of here. So that was more about the teaching. And then the two other big pieces of IB are concept. It's a concept-based inquiry. This is true of the PYP as well, the primary years program, and then also in high school. Concepts are big ideas that are usually 1 or 2 words. They're timeless, abstract, universal, and transferable. Here's a little joke comic that is, he says, "Hey, do you think we're a concept or a topic?" And he says, "I don't know. Are we universal and timeless?" And so this is often teachers, it's a challenge for teachers sometimes to think about content is topics and concepts transcend topics. So they sometimes think they're doing a conceptual connection when they're really they're thinking about topics. So this is a challenge that we work with a lot, about just trying to make sure we're making connections with conceptual connections. These are some of the key concepts from IB. So I just wanted to show you some examples of those, and you'll have there'll be a link to this slideshow sent out to you, those of you who registered. And then there'll be a copy of the slideshow on our website as well in a few days. So you can always go here and look at all the concepts that are for all subjects, because there are some core concepts, key concepts that transfer across all the subjects, and then every discipline or subject has its own kind of related concepts that are more tied to the subject matter, the discipline content. But these are the kind of examples of what concepts look like. One activity, for example, you could do with students just as an explicit way of teaching concepts is thinking about, is showing images and then talking about, well, what key concepts fit this best? And then having a discussion about that as a way to get them to understand and introduce concepts. Global contexts are really lenses. They're lenses of ways of looking at the world. So in IB, those are defined. There's six of them. There's identities and relationships, and each one of these you'll see has a kind of a central question. And then there are a whole list of pathways of exploration, they're called, in the context. And teachers will often pick a global context and a central question, and then kind of a pathway of exploration that goes with that. And then so then you're constantly tying the content back to that. So there's a scientific and technical innovation. In the PYP, it's I think they're just this basically is the same. It's transdisciplinary units, but it's this question: who am I? Where are we in the world? What are the consequences of our common humanity? So fairness and development, personal and cultural expression, globalization and sustainability. And you can see sometimes the context goes easily with a discipline or a content area. But often, you try to mix them up a little bit, and then it just creates these extra layers of thinking about things and connecting them. Okay, now we're going to move on to action service. So IB defines action in 4 different ways. There are different types of action: direct, indirect, research, and advocacy. And they encourage students to be responsible citizens of the world, and they want them to contribute to the world. And so we talk about service in these ways. And the way that it's done is we offer opportunities for, normally when it's not COVID, for students to participate in things that are more obvious, like helping at a food bank or some kind of cleanup in a canyon, et cetera. But also students can take action in their classroom. Anytime that they are learning something, the question is, well, what can you do with that knowledge? And anytime students come up with something they want to do, we try to encourage them to do that. And so it could just be, well, I want to tell somebody about this, or it might even be an assignment where, for example, we had in 7th grade science, I think Mr. Cross, I'm not sure he's still doing this activity, but an example would be that, you're designing a nutritious granola bar that you would maybe hand out. What would be the most nutritious bar, the most and taste good that you could hand to people who needed, food? For example, people without homes, or maybe as an emergency ration for a natural disaster, et cetera. So kind of trying to figure that out. That could count as student action, because you're taking your science knowledge and you're trying to do good with it. So more of an obvious way, here's just another picture of how you would, different ideas for how kids can take action. And this is a kind of a pretty obvious example, but this is a group of kids who came to a teacher and said, we want to start an activist club, a community activist group. And so they did. And they've been doing some little things around campus and dreaming big and meeting very consistently every week to talk about how to make change in the world. So they created this flyer and they hung it up and invited people to their club. So that's an example of student agency. However, in the middle school, we have a culminating 8th grade project, and I think somebody mentioned that. In this parallels the in the 5th grade in the primary years program, we have exhibition, which is kind of the end of the elementary school years, and then we go into middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And in 8th grade, there's community project. The middle years program actually runs through 10th grade, 9th and 10th grade. There aren't any schools in the San Diego area that run a middle years program that's a 5-year program, but officially the International Baccalaureate middle years program is 5 years. So in a program that's 5 years long, you would do the community project in 8th grade and a personal project in 10th grade. And then in the diploma year program in your 12th year, you do it's called CAS. And now I'm trying to remember what it's called, what it stands for. Do you remember what it stands for, Mr. Diaz?
I forget the exact acronym, but I want to say an community action service, something like that.
Yeah. So it involves an essay, doesn't it involve like an essay? And I'm not as familiar with that project, but basically these projects are leading up to that. So every year, the 8th graders are required to do a community project. It is something they choose of their own that they've been interested in or want to find more out about. And then they are required to showcase it. We showcase it and present it. And it's just a way to kind of show your learning. So what ATL skills have you developed? What knowledge have you gained? What are you thinking about doing? What would you like to pursue next? And so this is their chance to express that. At our school right now, they work on this during homeroom. And then of course it's an independent project. So they're expected to do some work on this at home as well. I have some community examples in here, but I'm not going to show them because we're getting very close to the end of our time. So I'm going to just leave that link here and you'll be able to explore that a little more. So that is another component of the middle years program. Here's a couple examples of some art murals. This person was exploring murals. So this is a community project and it's hanging in our school. And then I want to go on to, you'll see this outer ring is our disciplines. So you'll see there is the arts and design, math, individual societies, traditionally social sciences and history, language acquisition. So this is a quick example for physical health and education, what a unit planner looks like for teachers. And then you tend to make sure kids are aware of this in your coursework, in your course. And one of the ways we do that is just by posting it. So usually a unit has a title, they pick a concept, they pick some related concepts. This is their global context. They create a statement of inquiry. This is a dance unit that they're actually just starting in PE. And a lot of times these kids are like, well, why are we doing this? And these are the connections that they're trying to make through dance and action. Here's the rest of their bulletin boards. You can kind of see, I just thought this was a great visual. What the body does, the space, synchronization, there's all kinds of things that they're doing. So that's kind of what the beginnings of a unit look like, a unit of inquiry. So they're doing a unit of inquiry into dance. And this is some basic, this isn't really the criterion, but this is asking this question, what does it take to have a successful dance group? And the interpersonal skills that it takes to do that. So they're also developing those. The subject areas, again, these are the same that are on this wheel. I just wanted to quickly show you what art and design are. I think some of you have a few questions about that. So art and design in IB is not actually content-based. I mean, it's not an art history class. It's not a drawing class. It could be either one of those. But really, art and design in IB are following these cycles. So the art cycle, and these are the criterion as well, children are assessed on their ability to know and understand something, to develop skills in some area, to think creatively and respond. or reflect on it. And then these are like the sub skills that go in those different categories. So this could be, in the past, we've had mask making. We do have like a traditional art class that Frau Bull does. We have a yoga class. They're designing a yoga routine, like how a well-being routine, and they're trying to figure that out. How do we use our bodies? And then in design, we follow a design cycle, and this is how IB defines the design cycle. So this is, again, our criterion. So students are assessed in inquiring and analyzing. It's a little bit like knowledge and skills, developing ideas, creating a solution, and evaluating it. Developing ideas is making a plan. So they'll think about something and analyze and go through this cycle. And so what we're assessing is how well they can go through this cycle. And so, as you can imagine, we have arts or design can be either like a material design or digital design, et cetera. So a lot of the things we do at our school are digital design, just because we have a limited amount of space for physical materials. Kinds of assessment at IEA. So we've kind of gone all the way out through the whole that whole bullseye, and I just wanted to talk to you quickly about assessment and then how to check your kids' grades. So assessment at our school is based on teacher and peer and self-reflection. There's a lot of reflection that goes on at our school compared to a lot of other schools. We have summative and formative assessments. Formatives are like practice, and then you get kind of informal feedback. That's homework, what we would call homework or classwork. And then summatives are kind of those bigger projects and or exams that take place that kind of, okay, now really show what you know. You've had time to practice, so now let's see what you can do. Our report card, 4 criterion grades and a final grade per subject. I'll show you that in just a second. And 4 key ATL skills that we identified as key areas that help students be successful. Final grades in IB not really final until the very end of the year. So you just got your semester 1 grades. They will change by semester 2. So the grades at semester are just kind of, okay, what's going on now with you? And then we move on. Grades are not based on an average or missing assignments or how many assignments you've turned in. It's really showing us what you know. So if a student is able to show us, what they know, then they're assessed according to a criterion and a rubric, and that's what it is. We also do a MAP assessment. It's a norm-based assessment for math, reading, and language usage. That's what we've been using the last couple of years as the state standardized tests have been suspended. This year, the state standardized assessment, the SBAC, will be back this spring, so the kids will be. I am not going to go over that slide because I just want to make sure we have some more time. And I am totally fine staying later. I apologize for how long this is going. I wanted to just quickly show you this, so you can kind of see that these are the subjects, and then you'll see that there are 4 criterion, and you'll see this on your report card as well. Criterion are graded on a scale, a score range from 1 to 8. These aren't really numbers, though. They are symbols for a paragraph, essentially, that describes what a child has demonstrated as learning. And these are just a couple words we pull out of that paragraph as a shorthand key, so you kind of have an idea of what these mean. So you'll see that a 4, so if you see a 4 out of an 8 in a traditional setting, you think that's 50%, that's an F. That's not what this means. A 4 means that a 3-4 is a student is making adequate growth. So you could kind of think of that as a C average. You're showing growth. You're showing the amount of growth that we think that you should be showing at your age. A 5-6 is considerable, and 7-8 is consistent, thorough, and effective, and often able to apply knowledge in a new situation. So if your kids are getting 3-4s and 5-6s, that's great. They're showing progress. They're learning. If your kids are showing 1, 2s, I would have conversations with them. That means that they're demonstrating very limited or minimal learning. It might be they know a lot, but they're not showing it. Or it might be that they're not learning for XYZ reason, and we have to figure out why. Final grades are those 4 criterion added up, and the score of those 4 criterion create these points. And then you'll see this is actually the descriptor of what those mean. So you just got grades again from on PowerSchool for your final grade. So the S1 grade, the 4 criterion added up, and you can see there's a nice little paragraph that IB has created that describes the quality of the work. So you can see these adjectives: acceptable, limited, good, generally high, and then continues on with other descriptions about communication and demonstrating their learning. These are all available on our website, by the way.
And I put that in our chat. I put the link to our website.
Oh, good. And I have this little screenshot too. Understanding IB grading is right on our front page. Our header has changed. So if you go to the website, this header doesn't look the same anymore. And now I think Mr. Diaz is going to talk a little bit about how to access your grades in PowerSchool, because that has changed since last year. You now have access to our school information system where our grades are stored.
Yeah, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you should actually already have access to PowerSchool. Your child received their username and password in December or early January when they came back. This will allow you to access not just their schedules and their report cards, but as well as their attendance data. Next slide, please, Corey. Corey, could you go to the next? Thank you. So all you have to do is visit this URL. You'll enter their username and password and then click sign in. You might notice that there is a option to create a student account. This particular feature is not available yet, but when it is enabled, our tech support will send instructions to you directly. But the screens for student and parent are essentially the same thing. So it's not going to look much different whether you have your own login or use your student's login. But if you have any issues or your student lost their password, which happens in middle school, you can contact our support team at support@eacs.org. Next slide, please. Once you're able to log in, it will look like this. It will default to the quick lookup screen. And you can see there that you'll have the final grades under the S1 column. That's the 1 through 7 scale that Ms. Julius just spoke about. All right. And then you'll see immediate on the farther right, absences, tardies. And on the left, their schedule as well as the attendance for the last 2 weeks. Okay. And then you'll see at the top, there's the quick lookup screen, which will default to, and then the standards grades, right? You'll click on that tab. And on the next slide, we'll show you what that looks like. All right. And so this is just a couple classes. You'll have full access to all of their classes, but it will show you the criterion for each of those ABCD criterion plus the ATLs. ATLs, I remembered, are scored 1 through 4. Final grades are 1 through 7. This student did fairly well this semester. I'm not displaying their name for obviously privacy reasons. And then also, if you click on the quote box in your own student's portal, you'll be able to see comments that are given by the teacher, right? And basically that's it for the PowerSchool display. You might still be able to access Canvas. Canvas is more for assignments and immediate feedback. PowerSchool is our student information system that displays final grades. And if you need reporting for, let's say, a high school or a scholarship or something, that comes from PowerSchool. And you can print these off directly as well, or contact our front office if you have any questions regarding official documents.
Okay. Just quickly, the IB continuum at AEA, I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but we do have a primary years program from kindergarten through 5th grade that feeds into our middle years program. Starting in 2024, the San Diego Unified School District approved for us to have a high school, and we will start with 9th grade. So these 8th graders will go into 9th grade in the middle years program. And then we'll continue on to 10th grade in 2025. And in 2026, we'll begin the 11th and then the 12th grade for the diploma years, diploma program and the career related programs. So the high school will start in 2024, but we are just having freshmen come in every year and kind of advance. So it'll be 4 years out before the first graduating class. So the first 9th graders in 2024 will be the first graduating class of Einstein in 2028. And they will also be the first kids to stay continually into an IB program. So if you are attending an IB school program such as Mission Bay or San Diego High, you're actually not in the middle years program in 9th and 10th grade. You're on track to get into the diploma program, but you're not in the middle years program at that time. So you kind of jump out of the program for a couple of years and then opt back in if you're going to do the diploma program. But you do take coursework that lends itself to getting, to being successful in the diploma program. So it would be a nice reason to stay at Einstein if you like the IB program, and just stay in it from K through 12. This last slide is just things you can do to encourage your students. How can you support the middle years program and being at an IB school? And then that's the last slide other than questions. I'll just leave this slide up for now. And I want to make sure we got, for those of you who want to stay on, and if your questions were not answered, I really want to make sure we answer as many questions as we can. Let's see, what time is it? It's usually this Parent University is an hour and a half. So somehow we got shortened to an hour this year, and I think that's too little time. But I'm happy to stay on for another few minutes if that's okay with our tech director, and make sure we get some questions answered that weren't answered. So, Jose,
there was some questions regarding a German program.
Way back at the beginning, the Abitur.
No, just the German, our middle school German program.
Oh, what was the question?
Just information about the German part of our middle school program.
Okay, so our language acquisition programs at the middle school are in German and in Spanish. And so if your child was in the German immersion program in the kindergarten through 5th grade, and or is fluent in German, then you start at okay, so the language acquisition program in IB has different language phases. So an introductory to a language is phases 1 and 2. If you are already speaking a language and you're a little more advanced, then you go into phase 3, 4, and then there's a phase 5, 6, which is at the end of high school. So kids who come out fluent in German from the PYP program tend to enter into the phase 3, 4 course in German. And then anyone who is more at a beginning level, they do an assessment. And if they're more at the beginning level or they're brand new to Einstein, they'll usually, and they choose German as their language, they'll start in language 1, 2. For Spanish, typically the phase 3, 4 are students who are fluent in Spanish coming into or speak Spanish as their home language, and then come into our middle school, and they'll typically be in a phase 3, 4 class. And then students new to Spanish will be in a phase 1, 2 class, and then they just kind of follow through with that. So they're ready to, both classes are, by the time into high school, they shouldn't be in beginning Spanish or beginning German. They would be in the next, whatever next step there is for them. So that's how it works. It is a language acquisition class. It's not immersion necessarily, because it's just one class period twice a week. So it isn't, but in the space 3-4, I believe they speak German the whole time in class, and are, expected to read and write in German. How does that, is there any other questions about that, or?
Yeah, there's a question, can students add Spanish? Students can switch to Spanish. If you would like to try to do both, there is German, some German classes after school, as well as some Spanish classes that are starting after school. If for example, your students already enrolled in one language program, but they want to add that on. So there is that possibility this year, and we're looking to grow that program. But happening at the same time in the same day, that's not possible because the language classes are actually happening at the same time. I think I answered that. Yes, there was another question about what are the other IB high schools available. San Diego High and Mission Bay are the closest to us. There are other IB schools in the county, but I think they're as far as Fallbrook, maybe.
There's Pahome and Vista, and there's
correct.
Bonita High in Chula, right?
Yes. Yep.
Any other, let's see. Anything else? I'm looking to see.
I think that's it for now.
I'm kind of going back to see if we got all the ones at the beginning. I kind of took notes. I do want to say, I don't know if it completely replaces if the person's still on about the abitur. I would really check with that. I feel like a lot of our students who have graduated, that just anecdotally that I've known, who have done the German program and then finished the IB diploma program, have still ended up studying an extra year in Germany before jumping into university there. And I don't know if it's they still had to do the abitur, and it maybe they did not finish the complete diploma program in high school, but I feel like the few kids I know that have actually done that, have gone to Germany to study, to go to a university, have ended up taking a year and doing some studying there first before entering the university, but then eventually getting into university. Okay, so anything else? Oh, that's a great question, Ms. Mark Mason, about the school bringing in speakers. We have in the past. Funny that you should say Peace Corps volunteers. Mr. Ray, who was just on, worked for the Peace Corps for many years. We have had various people visit, and we would love to have more. However, right now we can't do that because of COVID, and so we actually have no visitors on campus. So sometime. And thank you, Michelle Guarino, for letting us know that CAS is creativity.
Creativity. I forgot the first word.
And yes, once the high school is open, we will have the personal project. So actually it's required. The personal project is required in the 10th grade. And at that point, the 8th grade project is not required, but we will probably continue to do both because it's good practice for the personal project. Yes, something like that. Yes, Mark, the graduate school thesis only at a 10th grade level. Oh, he's not even, I don't think he's here. Oh no, that's a different person. Yes, reminds you of UC Santa Cruz in the 1980s. Yep, that's a lot like, I forgot access to that great document. So did Svetlana, that's on our IB webpage under the IB on our website under IB grading, you'll find it there. Anything else? People are leaving, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah. And again, if you have any other questions, please contact either Mr. Diaz, Jose, or myself, Corey, Julius at our emails, or call the school. Email is the best way to get hold of us. So yes, do that, and we will be sure to try to help answer any other questions that you have. So with that, thank you so much to the, I think it's probably around 8 of you who are still left in here that are not part of the panel. But thank you so much for coming out tonight and sticking with us. And I hope to get to see you face to face someday and meet you all. So thank you very much. And I think that's it. So have a good evening.